So thank you for joining the Identity Unplugged podcast. My name is Axai Desai. I'm the CEO and founder of Observe ID, as well as your host. Today's guest is Patrick Benoit. Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Axai. I'm really honored to be here and look forward to our conversation.
Excellent. So before we get started, Patrick, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm the global CISO at Brinks. Not Brinks Home Security. That was a spin-off company from back in 2012, but Brinks, armored cars, cash movement, guns and guards kinds of thing. And I have been here for about a year. Prior to that, I ran global GRC and the BISO program at CBRE and had designed and built a security program as a deputy for a former Experian entity, and then was at Experian and was at Dell Services. So had a varied career there, and a long time ago, ex-military.
Excellent. A lot of good experience and a lot of wisdom and wealth of knowledge with you. So thank you for the introductions. And I also wanted to point out to our listeners that you recently won the Midcap Global Chief Security Officer 2023 award. So first, thank you for your service, being in the military and serving the U.S. Army, as well as congratulations for the award.
Thank you. I'm always honored when someone recognizes, but I have to take a step back and give credit where credit is due. I can only point the direction and help guide the team, but the team is the one that really gets the credit for everything done.
All right, Patrick, we know that October is a cybersecurity month, so we'll start from there. In your view, how can organizations foster a security mindset among all the employees? And when I talk about employees, contractors, we have consultants, of course, we have third-party federated identities, etc. And not just the security role folks.
Yeah. Because people only focus on the things that are pertinent to them, relative to them, relevant to them, and important to them. And so I think in security awareness over the years, we've made a bit of a mistake as an industry. We focused on helping people understand how to be safe at work, protect your laptops and protect your identity, and don't let people tailgate, et cetera, all those things like that. But it's been always focused on protecting the business. What we do at our work very seldom goes home with us because we shut it off and we leave it alone. So instead, we need to teach how do you protect yourself and your family from a cybersecurity point of view personally? How do you protect yourself at home when you're away from the office? Because those things that we learn in our personal life and were important to us in our personal life, we will bring to work with us.
Excellent. Yeah, well said. I think it's common sense. For example, changing the password and ensure that the passwords are X number of characters. It's a mix of things. I think those are the basic concepts that we use in how we build the business at home. You bring it to work. Very well said. Yeah, excellent. All right. So, Patrick, I know in today's world environment with the pandemic, everybody wants to work from home. They're so used to it. Organizations want to offer flexible work environment. Migration to the cloud is here. Every organization wants to go to the cloud as well. And that have altered how and where employees can connect and where the data is residing at the end of the day, right? So the more spread out your data is, the less visibility and control you have. And if you don't have visibility, you cannot take any action, as we all know. So how do you regain that visibility aspect of it and control as we used to have it when we were inside the data center?
Yeah, I'm a visual person. So when I visualize perimeter, we still have a perimeter. So I think it's faulty to say we don't have a perimeter anymore. The difference is instead of having a circle for a perimeter, we have our central point, and then we have this perimeter that kind of goes like this. Every endpoint that we have out there. So there's still technically a perimeter of some sort, and we just have to keep that in mind. As far as visibility goes, and we start talking about the cloud, I also take exception with the idea that the cloud is so different. The cloud is just somebody else's infrastructure. So we have to secure it as if it was our own infrastructure. We have to pay attention to it the same way. And we have to gain visibility first and foremost by scanning our network and discovering on our network and understanding what our assets are. And we have to get away from this idea that assets are only the pieces of hardware that are the endpoints, because assets are our credentials, assets are our endpoints, assets are our software, assets are everything that we can possibly think of that has value to us as a company. And getting an understanding of what that is, in my mind, is the first step towards being able to secure your environment. And then from there, it becomes an exercise in identity and access first, and then you layer in protecting data specifically, and then you layer in restoration recovery, backup recovery, disaster recovery, and those things. I don't see that as that much different. It's bigger, it's more extensive, but it's the same principles that we need to apply to the new environment.
That's true. One thing I want to highlight here, Patrick, that when we were into the traditional environments where the things were not changing at a rapid pace, right? Obviously, once you have the infrastructure in place, you got your applications, databases, they are there for God knows how long before we make any change to that. Obviously, that nature has changed as we migrated into the cloud because now you can right click, left click, and everything can be deployed. So has anything that affected at all, in your opinion?
Oh, sure. Particularly when you start thinking in terms of the ephemeral nature of our compute resources. You start thinking in terms of containers and ephemeral compute resources. You could have a server that 20 minutes later doesn't exist anymore. And so now you have to start thinking in terms of secure instantiation to make sure that when that server's created, there's security right there to begin with. But that's only kind of at the device level and the data level, because really and truly in the end, it's the identity and access management that then comes into play. Whether it's one server or 5 servers, if you can't access it, it doesn't matter. And if you can, it does matter. But yes, very ephemeral nature, very transactional, stuff's changing all the time, which makes a CMDB very difficult to maintain.
Very good. All right. And obviously with the cloud migrations and the new age coming in, I think everything is on the internet as well. So expanding this at a rapid pace, the IoT devices, what is the importance of identity and access management with the IoT devices?
Yeah, I personally don't care what subject you pick. If you're talking about cybersecurity or security in general, identity is number one. Because the fact is, we have people that say that one of the number one vectors is going to be phishing and clicking something you shouldn't click, and that might get you a foothold. But once the foothold's in place, you're still going to have to figure out a way to either gain credential or escalate privilege to be able to do anything with it. Otherwise, you're isolated, assuming identity was done properly to begin with, so that you have proper role-based containment of that identity. When you start talking about Internet of Things, you also get into a potential discussion of network segmentation. And do you isolate IoT devices or OT devices on separate segments so that they can't cross segments without proper identity? And so then it comes back to identity again. And you have access to the Internet of Things, whatever the device is. And how do you access it? And again, it comes back to identity. In my mind, identity is foundational for everything we do.
Well, true. One of the things I tell when I'm talking to someone is zero trust. We're all familiar with this buzzword, and now zero trust is becoming a reality as opposed to a buzzword, depending upon who you talk to. But anyway, one of my focus point and what I'm talking to in thought leader or within a conference, I always say identity needs to be the center of the zero trust, right? Of course, in order to achieve the zero trust architecture, there are a lot of different things that you need to pay attention to. But what's the most important thing? And that's the identity, which is what you are highlighting and focusing on.
Yeah, it would be very difficult to have any kind of security without identity.
Yeah.
So that would be tough.
So as we talk about all these various innovations, identity everywhere, IoT, zero trust, with all these demands for the security, right, for the rapidly developing technology, how do you recommend organizations balancing the need for security?
The balance is the tough one, and each organization will have their different balance points, but it really starts, in my mind, with ensuring that the business understands that they need to involve security early. If security is involved early and we come along for the ride, it's much greater opportunity for us to move fast with you. If you get moving 100 miles down the road and then you call us up and say, oh, by the way, we need X, it's tough for us to progress that 100 miles in a quick manner to catch up to you. We can't catch up to you. And that's where you get the problem. So to me, that's the first crux of the problem. Get security involved early. Stop being afraid of security. If security is being done properly, then the culture is such that we really only have two responsibilities, two stakes in our game. We are here to help reduce the risk, and we are here to help enhance revenue, drive revenue, grow revenue, however you want to look at it. And so if that's what our goal is, it's to your benefit to get us involved early so that we can keep up with you and run fast. That's what keeps us from running fast.
Yeah, excellent. Very true what you just said. Obviously, Patrick, your career in IT security, long career, obviously. I'm sure you've come across some incidents and challenges that you faced in your role as an IT security professional. How did the organization learn and adapt from that experience?
I think you have to learn and adapt from everything that you do. It's the old, you call it cliched or not, but the old Deming stuff with constant and never-ending improvement, and we always have to grow. We have to learn from what we do. And the key to that is as immediately as you can after you have recovered from an incident, is to hot wash that incident, to post-brief that incident, and figure out what the lessons learned. But then also to create an action plan out of that and follow through the action plan. What I've seen most often happen is we often do the post-brief well, and we figure out here's what the root cause was, here's how we can prevent it in the future. And then oftentimes we get diverted into the next incident, and we never come back and actually apply those actions. So there's got to be some follow through. And I think the key to that is to use ITIL principle and to make sure that you have good service management. And part of that is a problem management team. I know most companies, unless they're larger companies, probably don't have a full-blown service management function, but having a problem management team is absolutely critical in my mind to making sure that you're not repeating the same incidents and the same challenges and having them over and over again. And then you have to share the outcome of that. It can't be just IT sees it. You need to be willing to share that outcome so that everybody understands how we can prevent those things going forward.
That's an excellent point, finding out what cause and implementing whatever the outcome comes in. So one of the things that I observe, Patrick, and maybe you can help me here as well as our listener, identity security is very important to every organization. I think every security professional knows. Still, a lot of time we see that they fall behind on their priority for some reason, right? Because there are just so many things you need to accomplish within an organization to keep them safe and protected. But somehow the security falls off to a lower priority. Why is that? And how do we improve on that?
So two things about incidents. One, I wanted to mention too, there's only two reasons that we have a breach, a data problem, is somebody did something they weren't supposed to, clicked on the wrong link, or somebody didn't do something they were supposed to, didn't patch the system. Almost 100% of the time, those are the two reasons. And so you have to pay attention to those things. But I think that we just need to be more open and share the information we have more readily and not be so worried about blame and be more worried about how do we improve from it. That goes back to that idea of the improvement. I try and teach my team they need to operate from four basic principles. One is that you always have to have the highest integrity. So tell the truth about everything you can. Number two is nothing's personal. So when Axai gets up in the morning and is a little brusque with me, it's not my problem. That's his problem. So it's not personal. And the third is don't make assumptions. Make observations. Make informed observations. Listen and take in the information, then make a decision. And the fourth is always do your best. If we focus on that, which is part of that constant improvement, then we can avoid repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
Very good. Yeah, excellent. I completely agree with what you said, Patrick. So another follow-up questions to that, obviously, is the companies or organizations that are trying to balance themselves, prioritizing the security. What would be your advice to those business leaders who are looking to implement security.
Yeah, it all comes back to that idea of risk-based management of stuff.
Mhm.
And challenge has been that the last number of years, we have changed the storyline to be, oh, it's all about risk. But in doing that, we have also glazed over executives' eyes in many cases because we just say that's more risky, or that's a high risk, or that's a medium, or that's a low. And it's not relatable to a specific impact to the company. So I think we need to think longer and harder about how do we make it relatable to that audience.
Mhm.
So one would be things like, how do we measure the impact if something happens? Maybe you have to come up with a swag at it that says, if we don't do this, then the potential for a breach is 50%
Yeah.
higher than if we did do it. So therefore, if the average breach costs $4.2 million and we're 50% more likely, then maybe we're betting $2.1 million against spending X hundreds of thousands of dollars to put the proper risk mitigation control in place. So we have to start getting to that place where we're saying it's not just risk. Risk translates to real dollars. Understanding, of course, it's all an insurance policy. In the end,
Right.
it's all an insurance policy. So there's no way I can completely tell you that you're going to save this money. That's like when we go to the store and say, oh, I bought this on sale, therefore I saved you this much money. No, you didn't, because you didn't need to spend the money to begin with. In this case, we need to spend the money to be protected against the risk. If your level of tolerance does not allow you to want to spend that $4 million or the $2 million, then you need to spend the $200,000 now to
Yeah.
protect against that potential later.
So true. It's all about reducing the surface attack area, mitigating the risk, increasing your return on investment, all the buzzwords and all the things that we keep talking about to reduce the risk. So very well said. Thank you, Patrick, for your insight and sharing your experience and knowledge with our listeners. I wish we had more time. I have a lot more questions that I want to ask you, but we must leave at that for today. I hope you come back soon, and then we can pick up from where we left off.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I always enjoy chatting with everyone and sharing ideas, and happy to come back anytime.
Excellent. Thank you.